when Robinhood started, I don't know if you guys know this, but we launched in 2013 as a social network. So the name before we changed it to Robinhood was Analyst. And the idea was that we have all of these retail investors on social media and the internet, and they should have the ability to share their point of view of stocks. So we took the idea of an institutional analyst, the folks that rate stocks, buy, sell, or hold, set price targets. And the attempt was to democratize that. So anyone can be an analyst. We created this social network where people could rate stocks and write comments. And our initial vision was that once we got approved to be a broker, we would sort of layer on trading. So you can not only analyze a stock but you can also, buy it, and you can see your real portfolio. And sometimes I think about, we ended up making the decision that these are two very complicated businesses independently to put together. And the demand for commission-free trading was so high that we just abandoned all of that for the time being and just focused on making the trade button as simple and streamlined and easy as possible. But sometimes I think about that because very much in our DNA to build those types of products. And who knows, maybe some point we'll revisit.
I would love to see that and be able to track people based on their percentage return, dollar amount return, and account value.
And you'd sign up for that network and be willing you'd be willing to opt in and share your trades with followers.
Yeah, but as long as it's anonymous, as long as people didn't know it was me, all it would show is the account size and what I'm buying and selling. I do not want to be associated
you could choose to be anonymous or not. I think because I personally wouldn't care if I was, if I could show my trades. I'd be like, Jack Selby just made this trade.
And then you do the opposite.
And then you do the opposite of whatever.
Yeah, I think most people would probably want to be known and they could build a following. But I think if you, I could see the use case for wishing to remain anonymous too. But I think that raises a question of who is this person and why would I follow them,
So we've spoken to a lot of people on the podcast that have either been acquired or they've IPO'd. And they said after that massive landmark event, their quality of life can slip a little bit and they can feel, some sort of purposelessness or meaninglessness because they, that was their entire existence was building up this company. And then you have this massive event to kind of forego a lot of your equity and ownership of the company. How have you noticed that work with your life? Did you notice after you guys IPO'd there was a quality of life slip, or would you say that was not your experience?
There was definitely a little bit of a quality of life slip, but I don't know if it was the IPO itself or the timing of it. So we went public in July of 2021 at sort of the peak of the secular bull market before things went really south. And we were actually one of the last IPOs before the window got shut. I think Rivian went after us by a couple of months, but I think the IPO window shut for many, many years shortly after us. And you could tell the vibe was shifting right around the time we were going public. We didn't have a particularly hot roadshow. It wasn't, some IPOs where it was 60x oversubscribed. So you could tell there was a little bit of a vibe shift. Everyone was kind of understanding the government's printing a lot of money, inflation is creeping up, so something's going to have to change. And so pretty soon after our IPO, our stock took a pretty big hit. We went public at $38 per share. We traded, I was actually looking recently, when was the exact day we hit the bottom? Mid 2022. We closed at $680 something. So a huge drop, right?
What did that feel like at the time to see that?
It felt rough. And I mean, they tell you that you should ignore the stock price and focus on building your business. It's especially hard for a company like Robinhood, whose business is the stock market, to ignore stock prices, especially our own. And also, I think it's harder to ignore on the way down than on the way up. Because on the way down, people get concerned about, the long-term viability of the company, their compensation, if you look at employees. So hard to ignore, especially on the way down. And I think they really look to leadership to point a way out, right? Like show direction and inspire people so that they know it's a company that's worth betting on. So I don't think it was the IPO itself, but going through a hard time post-IPO where we went public after the GameStop stuff, there was a little bit of like short-lived euphoria around the time of our IPO. And then afterward, like the reality set in of we're a business that was, compared to now, much more fragile. We went through COVID. We transitioned to being a remote-first company. We blew out our headcount and grew our headcount 5-6x. People weren't working well together. We weren't shipping. And then the macro environment, which was a tailwind during COVID, rapidly reversed and became a big headwind, and people stopped trading. So all of that happened simultaneously. And so I didn't have the problem that you were suggesting, which is, oh, my job is done, like mission accomplished. It was more just like being hit by several freight trains of like unique, challenging problems, and having to like stop them or dodge them, and having to navigate that. So I felt there was no loss of purpose. It was it was like a slow burn of like different mini crises.
Do you think that was an overreaction? Because I remember at that time you were trading at a market cap that was equivalent to your cash on hand.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, how is this not a buy at this price? Because you're basically buying dollar for dollar the cash you have.
Yeah.
How does that make any sense?
I don't know if it was an overreaction as much as sort of us having to build trust with a new set of investors. And I felt like we had to do this when we were a private company. We raised, as a private company, we raised different rounds of funding, seed, Series A, all the way up to Series G, which was our last round before IPO in 2021. And in a lot of those rounds, you bring in a new investor for the first time. And I always felt like there was a period of having to earn the trust of the new investor. Maybe they don't really understand how we operate. They're trying to figure out, did they make a mistake did they overpay for the company? They don't really know us that well. And I felt like for each new one, there was a period where, okay, we had to prove ourselves. This is a new person. They don't know us. We had to build trust. And I think when we went public, it was very much the same. Different set of investors. You had the hedge funds, you had the long onlys, you had retail, which for Robinhood is a big chunk. But you'd think we'd always have retail, but no, as a private company, we didn't have any retail, so that was new for us. And I think that there was a period where we had to earn the trust of that shareholder base, and I think we've managed to do that. Finally, I could see the tide turning in 2024.
Now, really quick, every business is asking themselves the same question. How do we make AI work for us? The possibilities are limitless, but guessing is too risky, and sitting on the sidelines is not an option, because one thing is certain. If you're not doing it, your competitors are already making their move.
And that's where our sponsor NetSuite by Oracle comes in. It's the #1 AI cloud ERP, trusted by over 43,000 businesses to manage everything from financials and inventory to commerce, HR, and CRM, all in one unified system.
When all of your data is in one place, your AI becomes a lot smarter. It doesn't just guess. It knows. NetSuite intelligently automates routine tasks, delivers real-time insights, and helps you make fast, confident decisions that actually help drive growth.
And it's not just an add-on, it's AI that's literally built right into the system that runs your business, helping you cut costs, improve accuracy, and stay ahead of the competition.
Whether your company is making millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite gives you visibility and control to keep moving forward. Honestly, if I were building a business of this size, NetSuite's the only company that I have 100% confidence in.
So if your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, get our completely free business guide, Demystifying AI, at netsuite.com/clips.
Again, the guide is free for you at netsuite.com/clips, netsuite.com/clips, with the link down below in the description.